Awesome, thank you. And now I'd love to welcome in to the conversation Jennifer. Jennifer Chapin is the Neighborhood Resource Coordinator with the City of Orlando. And she's the mind behind, the driver behind the Community Connections Workshop series, which provides learning and best practices to neighbors during a monthly workshop. We invited our guests to come and share. We both think both of these guests are really kind of illustrate the power of when you're focusing on that level of, um, uh, you know, power dynamics, building local capacity, and building local connections. And Jennifer, I'd love for you to share about your work and helping us to think about how your program helps residents and neighborhood leaders connect and build relationships with one another and build not just connections, but capacity for change. I think you're muted.
Okay, there we go. Are we okay?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Like Eric said, I work for the City of Orlando. I am in the Office of Communications and Neighborhood Relations. And Megan and I, as she mentioned, met when she attended one of our Community Connections workshops, which is a program that we've been doing since about 2004. We meet anywhere from 10 to 12 times a year on the second Saturday of the month on a variety of different topics, most of which are geared towards neighborhood leadership, but 1 to 2 workshops a year are open to anybody and are informative for everybody, whether they're part of a neighborhood organization or not. And this is really one of the ways that we help strengthen neighborhoods and neighborhood leaders. One of the topics that we've done 3 times over the last 4 years or so is on the topic of asset-based community development, because as I was mentioning to Megan, sometimes people don't even know what their assets are. And so that asset-based community development workshop has been very, very successful. And we have actually even created a guide in one of our other training programs called iLead, which is a neighborhood profile, an approach to creating partnerships. And basically, it just shows you the different ways that you can even figure out what your assets are. One of the neighborhoods that I sort of use as an example here in Orlando is a neighborhood called Wakeview Park, just south of downtown, who has really demonstrated over the years, to me especially, that your neighborhood is made up of more than just the people who live there. It's your churches, it's your schools, it's your small businesses. And so this guide, which I think Megan is going to put in the chat, thank you, really helps folks figure out what those assets are. And what we do in Community Connections is we really bring in subject matter experts on each of those topics. And when appropriate, we'll bring in one of our other iLead guides as well. We've got a total of about 25 of those. So those are some of our assets, just a couple of our assets. But talking about asset-based community development, our department or our team, our neighborhood relations team, is really an asset unto ourselves, because we provide so much to our neighborhood leaders in a variety of different ways. We bring to you specialized trainings based on the issues or opportunities that your specific neighborhood has or your neighborhood board has. We provide a training called iLead for 12 to 25 residents per year, depending on how many of those 6-week training programs we offer each year. We have a breakfast training for our neighborhood leaders twice a year called Association Wellness. We even have a training open to our community association managers located throughout the city of Orlando because they're an asset that helps connect us to the neighborhood organizations that they work with. So many of our trainings are focused on neighborhood leaders and influencers, but we also offer lots of trainings to, like I said, trainings to people who may not even be part of a neighborhood organization. We've got something going on right now called Mayor City Academy, which is a 12-week training program where we take 60 of our city residents to various departments throughout the city and inform them about how things work on a day-to-day basis. I mean, we all have a general idea of what police do and what fire does on a daily basis, but you might not know what economic development does on a daily basis, or even our wastewater treatment plant folks do on a daily basis. And you really get to meet the people who are really excited about what they do on a daily basis. Some of our other assets are things that are much simpler. We do lots of printings for our neighborhood leaders. We print your newsletters for you, your agendas for you. We give you tchotchkes that you can give away to neighborhood meetings or to put into welcome packets for new neighbors. We even print maps for folks that can show you the difference between which homes are owner occupied and which homes are renter occupied. And we love it when people get a chance to learn about these things that we can provide you. And we really love it when they take advantage of these things. So what I really want to be able to say is that whatever opportunities that we provide, we don't do these things in a silo. When we invite people to community connections workshops, we really depend on our attendees to not only interact with our speaker, but interact with each other as well. We really feel like our neighborhood leaders learn as much from each other as they do from any speaker that we have, because we really realize that you all are all, as volunteer board members or board leaders, you're all in the trenches together, and you all have some of the same issues, speeding, participation in your organization, things like that. So one of the things that we really love to see people do is, as an example, we had one of our wonderful neighborhood leaders, Betty Williams, came to our April Community Connections workshop. And she said, I really have this issue with, I have the same 5 people who participate and volunteer in the neighborhood organization. And I just don't know what to do to get more people involved. And we had probably 4 other people jump in and say, well, I had that issue, and here's what we did based on my experience on my own board. A lot of the folks that come to Community Connections also participate in other trainings that are offered by the city as well, whether it's through the fire department or the police department. One of our commissioners offers a great program on learning about your government. And so a lot of those folks will also share, well, this is what I learned in that Citizen Planner Academy or Citizens Police Academy. So we bring trainings, we bring resources to folks, and we, with the hope and the intention that people connect with other residents in addition to our city resources. So
Which
that's about it for me. Like I said, Megan has come to a couple of our Community Connections workshops within the last 4 months or 5 months. And so it's been really helpful to have her present and that she can speak on those.
maybe
Yeah.
no one be willing to jump in, share from your experience as a participant of these regular gatherings and trainings.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So I am also the president of my local voluntary neighborhood association. And so that's really been the capacity that I've been attending these workshops. And I will say we were, for this webinar today, very intentional in both asking Jennifer and Clarence to join, because we also want to think of resident engagement very similar for those, especially in economic development, like a sales funnel, right? That intensive 10, 12-week training isn't going to be the best first step for everyone. It might be for some, but what are those opportunities that we provide people just to get comfortable in this space? And so I think the community connections workshops, being once a month, being in a central location, allows people to come and just to meet other folks. I will say, I think every workshop I've been to, after it's finished, there's still probably 10, 15 people hanging out, exchanging phone numbers, cards. Miss Betty is an absolute treasure. She always finds me, and we always get to connect. But that's really the power of just designing the space to be able to build relationships. A lot of the speakers, um, you're doing different activities with different participants. And so it's bringing neighborhood leaders together from across the city. And I'll even value the partnership with the county as well, right? To be able to connect with one another.
Jennifer, I know
Yes,
that you're going to respond to that. I saw your hand up. I just want to note there is a question in the comments. And also, folks, do feel free to take advantage of this time here. We definitely want to answer questions. There's also a Q&A box. And if you want to make sure that we see that you have a question, you can use that Q&A box. But the question in the chat that first address what respond to Megan, but the question asks, can you give us a specific example of what your organization, so the neighborhoods department, has done to help a neighborhood leadership with a problem, asset, etc.
okay. You would like me to answer that question, is that correct?
And whatever else you're going to say, feel free.
Oh,
And
yeah,
yeah,
yes.
if you don't mind, yeah, speaking to that.
So one of the things that, or a few things that we do are we are very careful and very open about making sure that whatever issue it is that you think that your board, that you feel that your board is having, we can absolutely come to you with very specific and very specialized trainings that addresses just your neighborhood. And then also in community connections is another really great example too, because you're learning how other neighbors and other neighborhoods solve their issue. We had a really great community connections workshop. I believe it was August or September, where we actually talked about healthy conflict. If that's a bit of an oxymoron, but it's not really. And I think that one of the things that we're very careful about saying is that, it's okay to have a difference of opinion, and it's really okay for two different people or two different boards or two different sides of the board to have different opinions on what they're seeing. But as long as you all can have a conversation, and this apply, I use this for me as well. So a lot of times I'll ask a question and I say, I don't know why this is what I'm seeing. I don't know why it's like this. And somebody will point out, oh, well, it's because there's usually another piece to the puzzle that you're not seeing or that you're not aware of. And somebody points that piece out to you and it's like, oh, of course. So it's just really connecting people to different thoughts and different ideas and different ways of doing things. I think that Megan did point out one of our iLead guides on our neighborhood profile, but we've got a whole slew of other iLead guides on a variety of different topics, from leadership burnout to conflict management to writing your neighborhood history. So.
And these are geared toward Orlando, but I would imagine any
Yes.
community could use these, right?
Absolutely.
Because every community is facing the same topics, the same issues.
Absolutely.
I wonder, can you give maybe a quick story, an anecdote? So let's say, for example, you do a workshop, a mini workshop for the neighborhood associations and resident leaders on conflict management, or it could be something else. But an anecdote about a neighborhood association using what they've learned either from the workshop or from each other, and have created change that way.
Using again community connections that's the one that I tend to be more involved with. It's really just people taking information that they've learned from other neighborhoods and forming their own solution. I can't think of one specific example off the top of my head on something like conflict management, but it's just that there's such a variety of things that people listen to, those tidbits that other people offer, and make those ideas their own.
So, I would say that, for us, we're just recognizing as we work with communities across the U.S., we've got these best practices, and one of them is just to make sure you create space where people can collide. And I think, Megan, you mentioned if you create some safe spaces, people just collide, to bump, learn from each other as residents, and learning to live into that resident role and being a leader, citizen leader. That creating that space is important. And then adding, in your case, like you say, with these connections, the regular meetings, adding that capacity building, right? That micro workshop on a particular topic that's relevant. That seems like a best practice. Megan, is there anything else we should pause on here, or I think maybe move to Clarence, and then also, people might see that, and we might have more questions for both.
Yes. Yeah, I would love to do, like I said, Jennifer, thank you for sharing about the Community Connections Workshop. As a neighborhood leader myself, right? Like, it's been really valuable to connect with others, right? Connecting with people who've been in their neighborhoods for 40 years, right? To see what works, to hear from others, has been just so meaningful to me. And it's also a great way to develop some of those relationships with the different nonprofits and leaders in the community. And so, yeah, I think it'd be great to jump and go ahead and chat a bit with Clarence, hear about the Neighborhood Leadership Academy. And then what we'll do, like Eric said, we'll save the last 10 minutes of this call for Q&A. So if you can use the Q&A box, you can also put them in the chat, though the Q&A box would be better. We'll have some time to get your questions answered for your own context as well.
And I will note as we transition to Clarence, Jay Van Groningen, thank you for your comment. So Jay from Holland and Michigan, and Holland, the neighborhood leaders, the connectors get together once a month as well, similar concept. And one example he gave from his context, one neighborhood leader learned how to address zoning variants from another neighborhood leader, and so they were able to work through that with the city. That's something that happened through the APAT by the community, by you creating space for people to collide, learn from each other, and from experts. These kinds of stories happen. So let me introduce Clarence. quickly, and hopefully Jan did okay with that. If not, feel free to unmute and share more. But Clarence comes to us as the executive director of the Economic Development Corporation of Michigan City. And last year they launched the Neighborhood Leadership Academy, an 8-week program for residents to learn essential skills, engage with local government processes, and contribute meaningfully to neighborhood development. And so, Clarence, I would love for you to come up, share a little bit of Michigan City, share anything you want to share about your story, but also then if you could share with us about the Leadership Academy and how that program helps to empower residents through learning and address power dynamics between local government and residents. Clarence?
Thank you, Eric. Great information from Orlando. I learned a few things. I'm from Michigan City, Clarence Hulse. We are 1 hour southeast of Chicago, city of about 32,000 people. Our claim to fame is the newest national park in the country, Indiana Dunes National Park, 3 million tourists a year. Before that, we had an outlet mall when it was, I was 25 years old, over 2.5 million tourists a year, or shoppers a year to that, and a casino, 1.5 million. So we're a big tourist city at the tip of Lake Michigan. So that's our claim to fame, is lots of tourism. And we've got 12 miles of beaches. So we're definitely a tourist city. Like most Midwestern city, we were heavily into manufacturing 50 years ago. When manufacturing left the US, our city suffered a lot. And so we had really struggled over the years. And so we've got some really poor neighborhoods in our community. 40% poverty on the west side, I think like 38 on the east side, and with 24 probably in Midtown. And so we are at the paradox in terms of our city has gotten a lot of attention and has begun to grow. And so we have brought in over $2 billion worth of investment the past 10 years. And so what I will do today is approach it from a different standpoint. I'm the head of an economic development agency. We are not normally in this space. So we are approaching neighborhood development as an economic development asset. And it's an asset we have to improve on for the benefit of the whole city. Most agencies or departments in my arena strictly focus on jobs and investment. We decided to do it a lot differently for the past 5 or 6 years. And part of that was because we received attention from 2 national groups called the Brookings Institute and LISC. We were guinea pigs in terms of how to do inclusive economic development and in small town USA. And so we raised our hands and say, hey, pick us. And we want to address issues, the tough issues: affordable housing, food insecurity, access to jobs, public safety, and development jobs. Because a lot of the work we do in my agency, we do create jobs, but the people who need those jobs can't access those jobs. They don't have transportation, they don't have training. And so it's the same old story here in every community, that we create all this investment, we give away corporate welfare and all that. We get criticized for doing that kind of things, and the people who need it the most don't access or cannot access. And so we spent the year and a half, 22, 23, with working on lists, with meeting with neighborhoods. We were able to work with 25 leaders within 3 years of the city. Change slide. We picked the top 3 areas of the city that's surrounded the downtown. Downtown is where the investment are. So on the left side is the west side. The 11th Street corridor is called Midtown, and then the east side. And so those are all the most highly impoverished areas of the city. And right in the middle of that is the downtown, where it's probably over $1 billion worth of investment is going on, over 2,000 multifamily being invested with condos, apartments, restaurants, hotels. And so that's where a lot of the city has spent money over the years. And so we're now seeing investments, but then just around that U-shaped circle is the highest poverty. And so, we were very concerned that, okay, how do we ensure that people can be part of what's going on? And so, and what's that model? Having been part of many, work in different cities, work in 3 different states, we've done workforce, we've done various things. And so we want to embark on how do we get people engaged. And so part of the engagement was having working with LISC and Brookings for almost a year and a half to put together what they call a playbook. Next slide. And so we work on making sure we had meetings with all the community leaders, the business community, just to ensure people had a voice of what was going on. And we did a lot of research, keep going, on the areas of the city. Some of the assets, and some of them were negative. We have a huge prison on the west side, over 150 years old, been a drag in our community. We've got on Midtown, it's kind of a commercial corridor. On the east side, keep going. We've got neighborhoods that are stressed. Lots of rentals, really landlords that are really not taking care of their properties, pawn shops. But here and there, there's been, investment, city park, brewery. And so how do we leverage those assets to make the communities better? Keep going. And some of the challenges we encountered along the way. And one of the things we told people that we can bring assets to the table, resources to the table, but this is going to be your plan, because this is a lot of work and heavy lifting. I've got a staff of 4 people. Obviously, we can't do everything, but we want to work with you to identify what the issues are, the barriers, and then work with you to help move these things forward. And so we came up with a playbook. So we spent pretty much a year and a half, keep going, talking to people, had a lot of community meetings, just having people map what the issues were and tell us what the issues were. Instead of a top-down approach, you tell us what's going on in your community. You tell us what you want fixed. And then how do you want to get this stuff done? And so keep going. Over a year and a half, we came with a playbook, and then we left from that and started putting together little groups of people who can actually work to get stuff done. We also were able to work to get funding to hire a community development manager. Keep going. This is our playbook. It's on vibrantmc.com if you want to take a look at it. Has about 20 pages of information that we've been our Bible for the past year and a half. From that, we put together steps to hire a community development manager who worked with the neighborhoods. We also were very fortunate to compete for an ERC fellow from the IDC and EDA, who's here with us for 3 years. And she's coming board and helping us put together different ideas for funding. So part of that was to hire a grant company to help us access grants for the community. Keep going. I think we're one slide behind. So yeah, I'll just talk about the things we want to do with the whole reference to the plan and working to get these things done as we speak, but also providing resources and making connection to people in the neighborhood so they can do it themselves. Keep going. What we've done to date, we were very fortunate to be able to get funding from the city and work with all the small business within those areas. How do we ensure jobs? It means we have to have neighborhood people create jobs and then hire their neighbors. And that's the best way to create jobs because they know people in the community. So we were able to handle over $700,000 with small business within those 3 areas of the city. We also hired a company to help us write grants. That's not our forte, but what are grants out there we can help improve and work with the city to have the city provide the matching funds. So whether it's landscaping, roads, community development grants, or whether it's workforce, housing. And we're also able to get funding to send 4 people to go to a Ball State University community development course. Because the idea is to train leaders. Next slide. We also put together the Business Leadership Academy. And what that is a 8-week program where we actually focus on training people on how to get stuff done. And so we recognize as part of the class was, as the Vibrant City initiative was, people didn't know what happened at City Hall. It's like City Hall is this big nebulous thing that people, you call if there's a problem, but people didn't know who to talk to. Besides, they call the mayor or your alderman. And so part of the class is, what is your neighborhood? Who's your neighborhood? And that's why we connected with Eric and Megan to talk about asset-based development and had a whole full day on that. But as part of the class, every department head has to show up for an hour during that time frame and tell us about what they do for the city. The Parks Department, police, fire, people in permitting. And then we talk about, getting permits. How do you build a community garden? housing, empty lots, code enforcement, workforce. How do you access all these things? And then as part of the class, for you to graduate, you have to have a project or an initiative. And so from that, we've had, next slide, a lot of people have come forward and actually done some things the last year or so. And so we've had 2 classes so far of roughly 50 graduates. And so from the class, people have actually moved on to do different things. We had midnight basketball this past summer. 2 young ladies, 19 and 23, put that together. The community came out, funded it, but also they had 8 different teams playing basketball for 5 weeks on every Sunday night from 9 till midnight. We've had 2 new community gardens started in the neighborhoods. We've had 3 or 4 block parties this year. We've had 3 new neighborhood association, and they put together a group of social media where they can communicate. We're working now to help them identify how to run meetings, because we're trying to make sure they can have effective meetings. And then next step is to then meet quarterly with all the neighborhood leaders. So that's the next step we're going to be planning this fall. But the whole idea was to empower. It was neighborhood empowerment, because we realized that people have all depended on the city to do stuff, and our thought process was, with everything we got going on, with all this booming, I call it, economy of new projects, new buildings, new companies moving in and investing, people have to learn to do stuff for themselves, but they have to be taught how. So our goal is to provide resources, access, and know-how, and let the neighborhood form, or groups form if they want to do a neighborhood, and access city, county, state, federal resources, but also learning who does what in the neighborhood so they can actually get stuff done among themselves, learning how to access funding, but also learn how to barter and do things among themselves. And so we're excited because this is now beginning to take a life of its own. We're still in the initial stages, so we were looking to learn from other people who are doing it out there. But we're excited because we're seeing people actually taking charge of the community and actually doing stuff. And our job is to plant the seed and provide resources, and they're getting it done themselves, which is the whole thought process, is to make sure that happens. So we're working on getting another class done next year. We're having a community celebration in November where people will come down, share their stories, provide food, music, and just kind of a community celebration, the first ever in the city. Next slide. And people, my colleagues across the state, well, why are you guys doing this? You guys are an EDC. You guys are not supposed to be working with this kind of stuff. And we're like, well, the biggest reason is we are doing a lot. We're creating a lot of change and chaos, not bad chaos, but what we do creates change. And so people will either resist or react or plan for it. We want people to actually plan for it and make change a positive as opposed to a negative. And so a lot of EDCs get in trouble because they're always doing stuff to people. And we're trying to be more inclusive in how we do stuff. And it's not easy because you have to listen to people's ideas. And sometimes the ideas may not make sense, but you have to give them an opportunity for them to vent. And then have a dialogue so we can actually discuss why things are being done. And so they can understand it. They don't have to agree, but at least understand why things are being done. And we're having some transformational changes in our community right now in terms of just huge investment. In terms of, we've got 14 scheduled trains to downtown Chicago right now. So you can get to Chicago in an hour by train, commuter train. We've got that photo shows the Nipska power plant that's being commissioned in 2 years, over 100 acres on the waterfront. And we're having issues right now with the prison and figuring out how to get that closed in the next 5 to 10 years. So there's a lot of things going on in our community right now. And so how do we make sure people are informed, but also can be part of the process, but be part of the process and be educated on how to get it done, and being real leaders in the community. So from that standpoint, I won't say much more. Excited to be a part of this and see it grow and take roots and become its own, because our goal is to provide information and connectivity and let it grow and be what it's supposed to be, a real, true community.
Well, thank you for that, Clarence. And a powerful story. Megan, I want to invite you in a second because you've also observed this in action, and so you can weigh up some observations. But something really struck me just we kind of have as city and civic leaders, there's a couple of options, right? We can do things to for, but then you do get that resistance, and it kind of you create more work for yourself in the back end, right? Where you can do things with and engage and empower and support, and then you get the things you need to get done, but also they're engaged and they're motivated now, and they're part of the process, and they bring new life to the community process. So that's a distinction we like to point out, is that you've got two paths here, and you can choose which way you go. And the leadership program is as a best practice. It's a way to cultivate and engage people in the process. Megan, your observations, and then we'll go to a couple questions that have come up.
Yeah. And like Clarence mentioned, we've had a privilege to be a part of that Neighborhood Leadership Academy through facilitating a one-day workshop for their participants to understand ABCD, map out their assets. I think one of the things, Clarence, that you hit on that I just want to mention again is what I am hearing, what is a major pain point for rural communities, large metropolitan areas, mid-sized communities across the country right now, is there's economic development happening, there's change happening in neighborhoods, and a lot of local government and civic and nonprofit leaders want to know why residents aren't happy about it, and a lot of residents are really upset that their neighborhoods are changing. And so I think what you mentioned, right, like what we're talking about with engaging residents and these neighborhood leadership programs, that's actually a part of helping facilitate that dialogue so that people can have flourishing in their community, right? And so we all understand, what does that look like for our neighborhood? One of my favorite things as well from that Neighborhood Leadership Academy, and this happens a lot anytime we facilitate on asset-based community development, is people start with really big ideas, right? Rehabbing a home, starting a community center, repaving roads, a lot of things that take a lot of time and work. But what you saw from those projects is it was starting small, right? We concentrate on what can you do with what you already have, but also what do you want to do? What would bring you joy? What are the gifts that this group has that you can activate, right? And the energy in the room from that group has always been amazing. And so I think, yeah, just the last thing is you'll see, right, again, we were very intentional in asking both Jennifer and Clarence to be here. Jennifer in the Community Connections Workshop built a lot of relationships between neighborhood leaders in different neighborhoods. And that's intentional, and that's a really good strategy as well. Clarence in the Neighborhood Leadership Academy is building some really strong connections within neighborhoods for leaders to implement projects in their neighborhood. And so both of those approaches are absolutely great. And what you're thinking of, and when you're thinking of your own context of how do I start something like this in my community, that's a decision to think through, right? Who is the audience and what is part of the goal? And I won't take up too much more of that time because I know we've got quite a few questions in the Q&A.
Yeah. Well, so first of all, just thank you. Jennifer seems to have has taken this question, but I just want to pose to you as well, Clarence. How to get people to step into leadership roles, especially when you've been doing this for 5+ years and keep expressing your desire, stepping back, but people aren't stepping into that space. But how do you get people to step into a leadership role? How do you get people started?
I think a lot of people underestimate themselves. A lot of people don't think they can do it. And I think part of the leadership class is connecting with other people. Just so you know, one of the things I learned years ago was working as a project executive on contracts and on a construction site was if people eat, they actually start doing stuff together. And so part of the class is we break bread every time we meet. And so people can sit down and have a meal and they start talking and they realize they got similar issues in their neighborhoods. It doesn't matter whether it's a high-end neighborhood or a low-income neighborhood, you got a lot of the same issues. And they start talking to each other and they learn from each other. And I think also by the city being involved and us just being transparent, this is your program. We're here to help you. And by the city putting money on the table and say, hey, you put these things together, we'll help fund it. So building that trust and then meeting with other people who want to get together and do stuff, and handhold and have the department head say, hey, I'll help you get that done, stepping out of their normal role and actually being more personal. That has gone a long ways to having people get stuff done, and actually stepping out and say, if they can have this kind of support, they can do anything.
Excellent. Thank you, Clarence. And then maybe if whoever wants to address this question, and then I think we'll need to wrap up. We're almost at time. Alyssa asks, I love these ideas of class projects. How many of the class projects have come to life, or is it already built into the class work?
No. Most people select their project after the second or third class because some of them are team based, some of them are one person. So I don't have a percentage for you, but I knew like the minute basketball was talked about doing class, they met after class to get that done. There are a few neighborhoods who are still in process of being formed because they're going out and knocking on doors. So there's some stuff still in the works. I'd say probably of the out of the 50 people we had, probably about 20 projects. I'd say over half of them have started, or probably a third or 2/3 of them have probably been completed. But they're still, because they're completed, they're still doing them again next year. Midnight basketball is going to happen again next year. So they had one this year. They're going to do it every year. So and make it bigger and better. So.
Thank you, Clarence. And Jennifer, I'll give you space too to bring the last words that you have. If I could, I want to, before that, Megan, I think what we have found too is just like resident and leaders or neighborhood association leaders, we need support, they'll need support to step into that leadership role and make a change and build a program. But I think we as city and civic leaders also need, if we're going to build a program around leadership or connection, that sometimes we need space to really think this through and accountability to do that. And I think you've got something coming up that might help to answer that.
Yeah, we absolutely do. So if you are here hearing these stories from Jennifer and Clarence and wondering what this would look like in your context, how can you make community engagement something that's productive, meaningful, and something that's both you and residents look forward to? We're actually hosting a community building studio the week of October 20th. And so this will be a 1 week long experience where you'll get to turn your idea of a program or an initiative around neighborhood leadership into an actionable plan. So you'll get to meet with a cohort of other civic and nonprofit leaders across the country, all building out a neighborhood leadership pipeline. You'll hear from experts, you'll get some technical assistance as well and support so that in 5 days, in 1 business week, you'll get to have an actionable plan that's custom to your community. So if you're interested, I've dropped the link in the chat for you to sign up on the interest form to get more information. But we are really, really excited to have this opportunity to work alongside more local leaders and really invest in that belonging and civic muscle.
As we wrap up, just to say once again a huge sense of gratitude, Jennifer, Clarence, for joining us. Chris, thanks for launching us into this conversation so well. And I'll just open it up. Any of you, any last words, thoughts, comments as we close out our time together?
I'm excited. We're just at the starting process to get this done. We're seeing the fruits of people actually being excited and stepping up and forming groups and getting stuff done. We have another class coming up next year, so our goal is to keep doing this the next couple of years, and hopefully we'll be able to transform the city and get people to grow and take charge of the community and make it better.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you. I see that we are at time. There's some comments here, just some thanks to again to our speakers. I'd love to connect with others to discuss ideas, things that have worked well. Thanks for today. Jesse says, Jennifer says, thanks. Excited about Community Building Studio. Great. All right. Again, Catherine, I can't say it better. Thanks all. Thanks so much, everyone. Thank you, Heather. Okay, well, I think that's a great way to round us out. Thank you, everyone, for being with us. Special thanks again to our guest speakers. We just thank you guys. We just appreciate the opportunity we've had to work with you over the years. And I just really admire and are impressed by your work. And we think it's something that everybody should be exposed to. So thanks for being with us. And thank you, everyone, for joining us and giving us an hour of your time. And it sounds like we've had a lot of people feeling inspired to go out and make some change happen. And if we can support you in that process, do let us know. We appreciate everybody, and we'll talk to you next time.